Hi, welcome back to Future Fast. And once again, we have a very interesting guest today. And before I bring him into the conversation, thank you so much for all your following. And some of you are leaving your comments. Appreciate it and feedback as well. Thank you so much. And we also see that a lot of you are sharing it with a lot of your network, which is really appreciable. And thank you once again for all your encouragement and hope you will enjoy this conversation as well. And we have, and of course, many of you already see this, that it is Rakesh Godhwani. And for those of you who don't know him, I just want to introduce in one line that he's the founder and CEO of School of Meaningful Experiences. What they do, how they do, why he does that, everything we will get to hear from him in this conversation itself. Rakesh, thank you so much for making time to be here with us. Welcome to Future Fast.
Thank you so much, Nanjunda.
Well, we start with your journey. So, where did it start?
So it started way back, some many decades ago, but I'll probably talk about how I came where I am today at School of Meaningful Experiences. A very simple story, nothing too exciting. Um, a young boy who had to make a decision on career, which is a classic problem in our society. So I had to either choose becoming one of the three options our country pretty much exposes most of us to, and I consider myself a little bit privileged and grateful about it, that either you go towards the medical line or you go towards commerce. I chose that, okay, I don't want to be in the medical line because I come from a family which is full of medical people. So I said that I'm not going to be one of them. And that left just two more choices, the commerce and math, because in those days, arts was not even considered an option, especially for boys. I'm glad that that's changing very fast, and the vice versa, that science was.
Unfortunately, no. I have a cousin whose son went to arts, and he went to St. Joseph, which is still
Mhm.
few years ago. There were 9 boys and some 32 girls. I
Good.
mean, it's still a bad ratio,
It
right? I
is.
mean,
So it was
but
it was
yeah,
0 and 40 in my time. Um, things take time, and the other way also. A girl could not take science in those days. I'm very happy that it's slowly changing. So I just decided that math is the only option. When you take math, there's only one pathway, and again, very limited opportunities. So you wrote an engineering exam, and I found a lovely college on the beach. That was my decision-making criteria, that I'm going to study on the beach. And came to this college, had the best time, met my best friends. And when the time came to make the next decision, which is usually in third year, that usually it is a GRE. Most of my seniors went abroad for a master's. Some of them said, we are going to write the MBA, so CAT. I decided that I'm going to just go for a job, and I had only one mission, that I'm going to buy a bike. So I'm very clear in my decisions, which are fairly straightforward, that go to a college on the beach, come and take a job to buy a bike. So I got a job luckily in Wipro, came to Bangalore, bought my bike, my Kawasaki Bajaj 125. My dad gave the money for that, and he still jokes with me that, um, you still are taking money from parents. So he and my mother really supported me in that. I had the best time, so I would drive, go to the Wipro office. Somehow, this is the phase where the Indian tech center exploded and jobs came here rather than going there. So I went to US because Wipro would send everyone. This is that classic body shopping days, which still continues but is a lot different now. So I went there, didn't like it. My heart was in India. I always enjoyed more the Indian ecosystem than the Western ecosystem. Bangalore enfolded me and my wife with its love and its welcomeness. So Bangalore became our home. The career progression was very steep because at that time there were many jobs and opportunities and very few people in India and Bangalore. So I saw that growth. Moved from engineering to business development to product development to sales and marketing, front of business. But a very interesting thing happened that I started to see a serious problem in the corporate world where the managers, especially from Indian origin, had all the technical information. So hard skills were superb, soft skills were abysmally poor to the extent that it would impact their career, their lives. So they would all look out for opportunities to sharpen themselves. Most of it would be an executive MBA program or a upskilling program. In those days, there were very few, or a Toastmaster club at best, or some other networking opportunity where you meet others. So I started to help people on that skill, and I thoroughly enjoyed that process of learning, teaching. It's a massive science. It is taught in massive universities around the world. So I started to go backwards at why are we not teaching it in India? And the answer is it is taught, but it is always ignored because it comes under that English department's hierarchy because of the colonial backgrounds. But even in India, this subject has been there in our Vedic systems. The scholars were taught how to communicate, but our education system is highly oral. So memorizing and speaking became the focus rather than thinking and speaking. And then the colonial era completely took it to an English system. The industrial revolution took it to jobs. So if you had a degree and you could do basic English writing and speaking, you'll get a job. But that's not communication. Communication requires a massive amount of thinking and speaking and listening and being assertive and sometimes saying no. And all of this was the stuff that I started to help. And by 2007, I had two jobs. Job one in Qualcomm. By that time, I had reached a very high position, highly paid. Um, so whatever I wanted to do with my career when I started at 97, I think I fulfilled more than that within 5, 6 years. So the path ahead seemed very straightforward and boring, quite disillusioning. In fact, I was quite bored at the end of the day. I would come back home that what did I do today? There's nothing meaningful. I just showed some PPT, showed some spreadsheet because I'm really good at that, right? You navigate your path, and sometimes, pardon my language, you just bullshit your way into the system. And I saw everybody doing it because it's extremely rewarding. But then that made me extremely disillusioned with the system because when you are not utilizing your intellectual and your other intelligences, you do get disillusioned. So I've experienced that. But when I would teach on weekends on communication, my intellectual and other intelligences were fired up, which is what is the concept of flow, that you have a great joy in doing it. Then you start becoming better at it with feedback. I made tons of mistakes, but then my learners were kind enough to help me understand where I have a gap, and I became sharper and sharper. So I quit. I made a leap of faith in 2008 and started to teach anybody. And then stumbled on meeting my professors at IIM Bangalore because I did a part-time MBA program there. I'm very proud of it because I don't have the brains of a to write an exam, get a banking job and a consulting job. I find that extremely disconnecting with my thought process. So I did a good MBA program. My professors loved me. I loved them. So I went to IIM Bangalore and became the full-time CEO of the alumni office because again, everybody would give lip service that we should do something for the institute. And I always am a person that I'll say that first I'll do it and then I'll talk about it. So I became the head of alumni association, um, and thoroughly enjoyed that process. Built a institution with just 3, 4 people, again with just communication, and started to teach at IIM Bangalore as adjunct faculty, which I continue till now. They are very kind and graceful to allow me to do it, and finished a PhD in this area. But now I was very clear that the path is very clear, that once you finish a PhD, you either become a tenured prof somewhere, because that's usually what a PhD trains you to do. But I said that I'm not going to focus all my energies in the outputs of a PhD program, which is usually a publishing process, which is extremely narrow. And you do that not because you enjoy it, but you just want a tenureship. So it's a very, again, the typical corporate mentality that nobody knows why they are doing it. There's only one answer: you have to do it. Otherwise, find some other job. So I got disconnected with the tenureship path. So I said, I'm going to be just a teacher on hire as adjunct. I'm okay if even I don't get called. I don't have any need to prove anything to anyone anymore. But then I was very clear that I have to teach communication. So any classroom. And then I was also very clear that I have to scale it. And I could do that only by two ways: that I have to create more teachers like me, maybe better than me, and then create a system where we go and teach, or they come to us and learn. And that's where the entrepreneurial platform was the only choice. And I am glad I took that choice, broke my fixed deposit, which I had kept for my son, and School of Meaningful Experiences was born. My son and my other two daughters, I've told them that there's nothing left. You figure out your own future. I'll give you a room full of books. My wife and I will give you all the love. We don't have money left, and I think they're smart enough. They'll figure it out. And we are now in our fourth serious year of operations. The first 2 years I
Before
experimented.
you get to this,
Yeah.
I want you to step back to your LinkedIn profile. Says below your name, it says
Mhm.
nobody. So why don't you share the nobody story?
Yeah. So just before I quit in May 2008, that I made that change very impulsively. So before that, my title was Senior Manager Qualcomm, and before that, some other thing, because it's exciting to tell the world about who you are through your designations and college education or accomplishments, which is what we see, right?
Well, at least on LinkedIn, it is fair because it's a
Yeah.
professional network.
Yeah.
But what was the trigger?
Yeah. So this was just before quitting, and I had decided to quit. I had decided that I'm going to be a teacher. And there was this one institution where the and it's a very famous institution with a very famous director, so that's why I want to keep it confidential. And that gentleman had always said that, Rakesh, anytime you want to come and teach, the doors are open for you. So before quitting, I called him and said that I am quitting and I'd love to take that offer that you had given, that the doors are open for me to teach. And this gentleman, when he heard that I'm resigning, very subtly said that, unfortunately, Rakesh, that our academic calendar is closed for this year. Next year, we are happy to discuss. And I got the message that what this academic institution was looking for, me plus the designation, which is my Qualcomm and my Intel and my Wipro and my IIM Bangalore and wherever I come from, because they have to put it in their records because it gives them that ranking bump. And that's the day I had the bitter truth of my life, that I have no identity in this world, which is what in Hindi I say, koi auqat hi nahi hai hamara. You are just a visiting card for someone. And it hit me so bad. And I'm glad it hit me. I was just 30 at that time. And in that anger or impulse, maybe I just went to LinkedIn and I said, nobody, to hell with it. And I haven't changed it since. It's been 16 years. And I think that has given me a tremendous amount of strength, because it has liberated me from the desire to prove myself. I want to work with people who come to me for who I am rather than my designation. And I openly talk about it. Like many times I'm introduced as a professor of IIM Bangalore, and I immediately stop them. I said, I'm not a professor of IIM Bangalore. I just teach there. There is a there's a title called adjunct faculty. And in academia, an adjunct faculty is the not valuable, non-discussable, nobody cares. But it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the chance to go and teach in that classroom. To me, that is important. And it doesn't matter to me that my name is on the
No,
website.
but for the others, it matters to position themselves as being connected to a person who's identified with this brand in that capacity. So that's the reality we live
Yeah.
in, right?
But also the reality has flip side. I know because I was the head of alumni of IIM Bangalore, right? A lot of people misuse that term. And I always would stand up and say that, hey, this is that Spider-Man movie dialogue that with great power comes great responsibility. Don't misuse it. Just because you have given one lecture at IIM Bangalore doesn't make you a professor. And it's a respect to the institution that we all connect with. I have so many people, and you can see that on LinkedIn, right? There are people who will do 1 or 2 day program but call themselves as alumni of Harvard and IIM. And I get it. I mean, I understand their need for validation with deep respect to them. The
Oh,
problem is when they do business.
incidentally,
Yeah, I'll just finish that.
incidentally, yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just finish it. Uh, the problem is when they use that designation to get business from others. That I'm a professor from IIM Bangalore, and now give me a consulting business. That's where I stop. That's why I stop people on that. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, on the same thing where people misuse it, there was the the same common friend Anup once called me and said that is this guy? He shared a link on of LinkedIn saying that he's a founder of some company and he says he's an alumni of IIM Bangalore. Is there a way? Can you confirm it? So I looked up. I couldn't make out whichever year he was claiming. I reached out to uh, Partha, who came
Yeah.
after you, right? So I reached out to him and asked, this looks very fishy. Can you confirm it? So he said, see, formally there is a process of doing it. It's going to take time. But what is the reason? So the reason was that this guy had raised
Yeah.
few crores as funding for his company. And one of the investor was supposed to be some ex-CXO of Wipro,
Yeah.
had also put in the money, and which was published on his website. And because of that, a group of people from Bangalore had put in some 4 5 crores. So he had supposed to have raised few millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so these guys were contemplating on, they were not able to reach him. They wanted to get, and incidentally, the other senior executives don't know and all that. So anyway, the long story short, he was not even an alum of IMB. And funnily, he had managed to connect with one professor in IMB. It was a lady, and he had looked like he had met her somewhere. So there was some quote, right? Some comment by her or some exchange of that. So that invariably was used as
Yeah.
confirming his claim. So
Yeah.
small things can be, if you just connect with him, that means you are connected. That means you validate his existence and his claim. This is how things go.
It does. And I'm very sensitive to it. In fact, when we used to do press releases, one of my friends from the industry or somebody said, Kiya, just put your professor of IIM Bangalore. I said, absolutely not. That is wrong, unethical. I should not even put it. There is a process. The dean has to approve
But
it.
some fancy people have to hear the professor.
Yeah, and again, I teach this in our classes, right? Why do a lot of people do it? The need for validation. And I am part of education as a business. I know how mad our country is on these terms, and even UPSC and IAS and IIT and IIM. There's madness. And now we know about the NEET scandal. People pay a fortune of their hard earned money, knowing that it is wrong for a scandal. And we are going through a crisis in our country on education. And that's the reality, right? That we are mad about these terms because these terms make us believe that we are very good. But I have seen a very different world. I mean, I have seen that even great institutions like Harvard's and what have you, not everybody is a great student. I mean, it's a very different discussion. And but the world, and I've met VCs, and one analyst from a VC company called up to double check my alumni status and confirmed it. And I asked him, why are you asking this question? They said, sir, we have some list of questions and this gives us the priority. I'm like, are you serious that you're going to put me on a priority list just because I'm an alumni of IIM Bangalore? And she said, yeah, sir, but don't tell it to anyone. Like, but this is the truth. And even in the investment circle, just because you are from a better college, you get bumped up. In the HR industry, just because you're from a tiered college, you're paid more. That part is existing. To me, these are issues. That's why the problems of education are coming.
Well, you also have been an author, right? So when did that happen? What was that trigger to?
Hmm. It all happened in that same year. So when I was quitting, and this is, I'm glad you asked this question because it connects with that whole nobody. So I changed that title. Somebody in my LinkedIn circle wrote to me that you have a book in you. When you're ready with it, give us a call. I'm like, what? I mean, where did that come from? And this person was a publisher, again, connected to some connections. So I'm very grateful that I went to good colleges, one on the beach and one in Bangalore. So it gives us access. And this person had published books. So I, anyway, was planning to write a book about my plunge from the corporate to the world, which is where I feel very excited about. Now there is an industry on it. This is like finding your calling and ikigai and all of that. But in 2008, it was slightly becoming easier to discuss. So I was planning to write a book. Now I had an email in my LinkedIn mailbox that when you're ready with this book, we'll publish it. So I'm like, oh wow, this is the Kung Fu Panda dialogue that the universe is now conspiring to make things happen. And before that, I must tell you that I think I have tried my hand at writing, but I'm considered a terrible writer because I can't write to save my life. I express myself. My grammar is bad, so somebody has to clean it up. But my sentences kind of give a message. So I'm not a great writer, but that's the process of writing, that you bring out your manuscript and the editorial standards come in, and you know it. You were in advertising marketing, so you understand that space much better. So Plunge was that first book, and it was a great experiment for me to start writing. So it was a book that came out. One of my author friends who's very famous actually said that, Rakesh, you should have done a lot of marketing on it and you could have taken your career to a trajectory. I'm glad I didn't do it because, again, my purpose was to write the second book, third book, because that's when you become a slightly better author. So the second book happened, Seek, which is here. You see it behind me, the grayish book. So a very gentle, kind lady from Random House, which is now part of Penguin, wrote to me that we've read your first book. We would like to ask you, would you like to write a second book on, because this topic of how do I choose my career is a big problem in India. And if you would like to write with us, we'll be happy to publish a book. So that became the second book. So I was really lucky. I don't think I'm an author. I stumbled into it. I got lucky that a good publisher said, we'll publish it for you. So Seek happened, did okay. And then I was talking to the Random House editor, who's now the Penguin editor, Millie, that I have a book on communication. And she said, that's a topic that's very exciting. And that's where my third book, What to Say, When to Shut Up, came in, which is my only book which is doing reasonably well. It is now in its fifth print, and not like a billions of trillions of books, but it has sold some copies, which is considered a reasonable book for a publisher. And the fourth book, which is unknown and it is not in public media, is a research book, because when I finished a PhD, one chapter became that book and I published it out. So that's how I've written four books till now. Two are communication, two are different.
Well, Uh, I wrote a book because um, uh, uh, I also go and talk to colleges and students and all that. So I wrote a book and I published, and then a friend from US called me and said, "You have not updated it on your LinkedIn as an author."
Mm,
I said, "Should I?" He said, "You should, because that's one of the things, the way people will look up to your book and even buy. So if you want to sell, you better do that."
yeah. Not
And I
not
actually
just
updated,
not just author. You have to write best-selling.
which I'm not yet. Right? I can't.
Yeah, and it is hilarious. I mean, I have friends who have published books and they are just half a day old in the market and they're best-selling authors. And it is
They
hilarious.
publish it as bestselling. Oh, so all those who claim as best-selling are not best-selling authors. It's just a claim. Anybody could make them.
I think this world is so unorganized, especially in this whole publishing creative industry, that everybody can always claim I'm a best-selling world's number one. I mean, who's there to question you? I mean, the problem of the arts and performing arts and creative world is no standards to judge what it is. And the word best selling is debatable, questionable. I've also heard that there are a lot of people who print books, and there is something called the vanity print, which is you buy your own books. So the first print lot is you buy it out, which is not that expensive, right? And there is a industry body that measures how many books are sold. If you sell more than X hundred books, it's called a bestseller. So technically, you are a
No, no,
bestseller.
no. My friend told me that in India, what is regarded as bestseller is 20,000. If you sell 20,000 books, it's a bestseller. Is that
Yeah. I've heard varied numbers. Some
so?
numbers,
Hundreds, I didn't know about it at all.
yeah, I have heard much lower. 20,000 is way too high from my perspective, because in that case, I'm not a best-selling author and I don't even claim it because my sales haven't touched 20,000. I have crossed, I think, north of 12,000 right now, maybe 10 to
Oh.
12. And that is
Well,
considered,
probably I would have had an opinion earlier, but after I published my first book, I know that's huge.
yeah. And again, and I have friends who are publishers and they talk about it. Um, you have to fuel the market, right? The market works on marketing, and I get that. The moment you say a best selling product, there is a fear of losing out. People do trigger, there's an impulse sale. जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. So as a author, I have friends who dedicate their entire lives to just promote their books. One of my friends even said ki, and this is the time when there were bookstores, up to there are very less. So there were the days where there were bookstores. So he would go and visit and just keep a copy of his book on the stand and walk out. And he would sometimes even talk to the cashier and get some information. And he said that you have to do it. It's your book, your baby. You are the entrepreneur for it. So why are you not pushing your entire life on it? The same thing I've heard from this guy who has now become a great podcaster. I think he wrote a book called uh, t- starts with, I forget, the 4 hour work week or something. I forgot the name.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah,
And
I get who you're talking about.
yeah, I think there is another name, Ferris something. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I've read his books. In fact, as well.
Ferris
He is
something. Yeah.
correct.
So
Yeah, and is very good.
yeah, and so he talked about how you have to promote your book and you have to
Uh,
literally like a product, you have to carry it. I've heard this guy Seth Godin, and Seth
uh,
Godin, he, I think maybe it was him or somebody else, and he said that he would take his car full of books and go for speakership tours and stand in front of a car and sell for like $10. And so you have to work very hard. I probably took a different view, that I said I'm going to write my book, then write the next, which in hindsight, I think I made a mistake. You must invest time in one book, promote it, one book, promote it. By nature, I kind of, I do a project and then I kind of move on to the next one. I don't like to keep investing time on it. But now I'm changing. Now with SOME, now it's everything is about SOME. Nothing more, nothing less.
Well, uh, I've had different feedback. I mean, uh, one friend, good friend, to be fair to him, he actually told me. I think he was very honest also, that he told me that I should change the title. I should perhaps republish it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and add a lot of masala in it, because what
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
written is very matter of fact, and people don't.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
Yeah, so you need to be bringing that urgency. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I I don't know, because see, what I wrote is about AI, and I did looked up about 20 industries, and I mapped about 80% of the jobs which are presently on and which will lose the jobs. And he says, you just present it that way, it doesn't hurt. You got to be
Exactly.
telling you are going to lose the job. And in the preface, I say that this is not to scare. So how could I possibly be doing it if I say that I don't mean to scare you? The idea is that you be prepared. But then I'll only sell if I scare you. Isn't it contradicting? How do you go about it?
It is. But again, the nature of communication comes from these contradictions, right? That you look at even a person making a movie. Satyajit Ray would say, I make the movie for myself. It gives me joy. But that is Satyajit Ray. And then there is the modern populist David Dhavans and the others. They make the movie for a person who is driving an auto rickshaw and needs entertainment in the night. So it's a fantastic worldview that one must learn. Both are good, creative human beings. So your friend is absolutely right that I think you write a book for an audience. The audience has no time for you, by the way. They are living a great life. So if you have to really draw them into your ideas, a little bit of masala, sensation, hooking is the science. I mean, I teach communication. When you make a pitch, the pitch has to start with a hook. Otherwise, why would the person listen to you?
But my preface is that I don't mean to scare you. And then do I keep my preface and then I still scare you? I mean, how does that work?
We don't know the answer, but maybe you may want to change it to
Preface also
you should be scared,
scared.
because that could give you great hooks. And because it's human, a human intuition, right? Imagine a book cover, you should be worried, and you're like, why? And you pick up the book and you walk on. So fiction writers, murder mysteries, there is a science behind it.
It
You
makes sense for fiction, right? But for a non-fiction, does it make sense?
No, I mean, look at Yuval Noah Harari's books, look at all the world's best sellers on non-fiction. There is an element of a hook, and that's where
Correct.
there is a team that comes in. I mean, I'm sure Yuval Noah Harari has an amazing editorial system, and it's not like hundreds of people
Probably he puts a dot without a title and it'll still sell.
now,
No.
but not for his first book, right? So
Right.
his recent book Nexus already is in bestseller without even being launched, but his first book required an effort. So these book companies and editors do see potential in some good books, and they see that this will do well because they understand the market. Then there are agents, and they are hired to promote the book. It's a pretty billion-dollar business. And Salman Rushdie's latest book, which is that knife that I forgot the name,
Mm-hmm.
knife, I think, where he talked
The
about his
knife. Yeah.
post accident. Um, so there is a world out there. Then I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell's books, and I have almost all of them. I've read lots of non-fiction. In fact, my
Probably
office
his
has
books are your textbooks as well for your program.
not textbooks, but referred material.
Okay.
And so Gladwell brings a lot of journalistic concepts and social science into his writing, which is why I enjoy reading his books, because he is not just writing about an observation. He brings social scientific theory to prove it. Then there is a journalistic story and field work that they do for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they write is any ordinary human being like me understands it. And that's what is good writing, that sometimes even people like me can't understand that. Our words are difficult. I've met so many of my students and my managers and CXOs. They all want to write a book on finding your passion, which is the hottest topic, right? And the way you bring out this topic is interesting. Nobody cares about your story. Nobody cares about how you struggled in life and now are becoming an executive coach. So all executive coaches nowadays want to write a book. Why? It's great branding. It's a presence thing. And I work with many of them and CXOs, and I tell them that I'm sorry, I don't see anything great in this story. It's a story of any other ordinary human being. So, can you now bring experiences? That is one path. But then on the same path, there are influencers on YouTube, and I will not name this one person. His book is, I would not call a great book. I've read it. Actually, I didn't read it. I picked it up, I opened half a page, and I just put it down, and I would probably never even look back at again. But his book sells more than lots of other authors put together.
Why?
Because I think his words connect with a person on the street who has never read a book. This could be his first or second book. And I give credit to this author. He may be, let's say in a literary world, he may not be respected. We poo-poo about him. We gali marte hain aise logon ki, yaar, he's an influencer. But I always say ki, boss, imagine one thing, that there is someone in India who picked up his book as his first book and said, this book changed my life. There is some truth in that. And there should be, humility in accepting that.
There are
Uh,
such feedbacks on that?
Yeah. I mean, today morning, one in my own group that I'm part of, somebody said a message, and if you'd like, I'll forward it to you, but we will keep the name away from this
Sure, sure.
podcast, just to let you know that there are people who feel that my life was changed because of that book. That's the beauty of communication. For them, this book is amazing. Maybe
True.
for me, it's not. And
Mm,
that requires a deep sense of understanding about human beings. That what I see today is all of us giving judgments on each other without realizing that on ground reality, life is very different.
mm,
Everybody has an opinion on everything. That's not how the world works. The world works on basics. And if you can get those basics, so this author is a smart guy. He knows how to make money. He knows how to write.
true.
He's got a publisher. He's got a YouTube channel. वो पैसा कमा रहा है. तुम लोग अपने आप को ही ओपिनियन में डाल रहे
Correct. We people judge doesn't make a difference, and you actually perhaps contributing. If you judge it in public, you're actually contributing to the same.
हो. And I have learned the art of shutting up. कि यार,
Perhaps you quote him. Few in the audience will pick up just to think who are you talking about? Why are you saying such thing about him? And his books will still sell again.
yeah, but I think what I've now started to learn is that at some point of time, I'm no great Shakespeare. My book nobody even knows and reads, but his book is. So there must be something I could learn, which is what even your friend told you, that communication, writing are all same. That you have to speak the language of the audience that works in the market and make them buy the book. And if your book is not selling, it's like a great dish. You may be a great chef in your own home, but if people are not buying your food or bolte hain ki sir maja nahi aaya, you're not a good cook for them, and you have to learn from that. And this is the problem of various academicians, that in the world of academia, publishing a book is considered no great shakes.
Which is expected to, right? You have to
No,
be
no, no, no.
publishing.
It's a waste of time.
Oh, okay.
There in academia, you have to publish papers which only 4 or 5 people read, usually the editorial committee, because there is a prestige of the journal. That journal will only entertain certain kind of people. It's a massive system, and it takes 3 to 4 years. That's why it's not easy to survive an academic institution today. About 20 years ago, you could get away with all of this, but today, publish or perish. That's how this world works.
Oh, interesting. Well, who are your biggest motivators in life? You did talk about quite a few books and authors.
That's a tough one because I don't have one or two clear answers. Um, Luckily, My motivations change every year. S- Um, so about 30 years ago when I was in college, I can now remember few books and few people who motivated me. So I think there were some seniors of mine who connected me to Economic Times and Business World and Business Today. India Today was a pretty big thing in those days. And there was a reading room, so I started reading there. And I stumbled on books on the story of Coca-Cola, um, General Motors. So the world of business excited me more than politics. So my motivation came from people like J.R.D. Tata and any other business CEO who's built huge businesses. But I also looked at humility in them. So, like, again, I'm not going to take names, but if you look at today's popular motivational CXOs today, many of them are from India who are billionaires now because they became great entrepreneurs and VCs. They don't excite me at all. I'm not motivated by them. In fact, there are many of them who we now know are doing fraudulent activities, but that seems to be okay these days. And so I connect ethics more. I look at humility more. So names like JRD Tata would probably stand a little bit more. Then on the um, spiritual side, maybe names like Vivekananda would stand out more for them. Though I have not read his books, but I've heard lectures on his books, which I connected with the Vedanta philosophy. Then on academic world, I have lots of people I follow. They are people who have written books and they have lectures available on YouTube. It could be either on TED Talks or Google Talks. So I follow many of them, like not one. Somebody has done research on deep social scientific concepts. Somebody has done research on history of the world. Somebody has done research on just how music works. Like recently, I'm reading a good book written by somebody in Bangalore on the Indian music industry and the lyrics and songwriting. Lovely book. So that has motivated me a lot. I've not met this author, but he stays in Bangalore. That's what the description says. And what a delightful book. And somebody recommended it to me, and I am reading it. Then Nobel Prize, the winners and their stories and their books, I read a lot because I'm highly scientific in my approach. So I connect with scientists and I'm inspired by some of their stories, not all. Like many of the scientists were also very badly behaved human beings. So I would probably go towards those scientists who also became philanthropes and would do something for the society. So I connect with that. So maybe philanthropists, people who have built businesses, people who communicate very well and explain things very well. I draw motivation from them.
Well, the fourth book author, what advice would you give as a fourth book author to yourself as a first book author? I mean,
First of
apart
all,
from the marketing thing, you already told that.
so first of all, I would always, so I tell this to everyone. Nowadays, self-publishing is a big thing. I always tell them that don't be in a hurry. Find a publisher because that is the first yardstick that is someone betting on your writing. Self-publishing is an easy way out. Now there are stories that a lot of people self-publish and become bestsellers. I'm okay with that. I'm just thinking from a advice perspective that ask yourself what is your need to publish. Is it to be called an author, which is where self-publishing becomes the best route for everyone? Or do you really want the book to change the views of people? It should become an engagement, a discussion. There you have to work very hard. So you have to write really well. The topic has to be good enough. That's when a publisher will say, this looks good to take it forward. So work hard on your first book. And sometimes the first book is the only book you have. We all have, not everybody has 40 books in them. Some of us have only one book, one shot. So don't be in a hurry. That's my only advice to first-time authors. And the only other minor request, not even an advice, is writing is not about just blurting out something. Writing is a process. So 100 words a day. And if you enjoy that process of 100 words a day, which is sometimes very boring, sometimes extremely frustrating, sometimes like I still find my way to write because I have LinkedIn and social media as my posts. Otherwise, my writing books I've postponed because I'm so busy as an entrepreneur. Survival is most important. Even writing that one post on LinkedIn is frustrating sometimes. And I know Chat GPT can help me, but I don't use it. And after publishing, I'm like, why the hell I wrote that? So I go and edit it and delete it. Sometimes you'll see my, if you get my super admin, you'll see me, I have edited the same post at least 4 times. I've removed and but and comma and all of that, which means I'm not a good writer. I am impulsive. I just want to get it out there. So my request to everyone is the process of writing is more important than the outcome. That just sit down and write 100 words a day. And that sharpens your words. It makes those words come better and better. And one day you'll realize that this page is really good. I really am proud of it. And once that day comes, is the okay, now fill next pages, then your book starts to shape up. It takes a humongous amount of time.
Well, what will be the legacy of that you would like to leave behind you? I mean, I know it's a odd question for somebody who designation says nobody.
Yeah. No, it's not an odd question. I think um, I will be pretentious in saying that I don't care. I think a lot of motivational gurus say that. But deep inside, leaving a legacy is a very deep desire of every human being, leaving a mark. So I'll take that question in the right spirit. I do have, I really want SOME to be my legacy. Of course, my children are, but that's not the focus. I think our children are the biggest legacy we leave behind. Besides them, I think SOME, I hope the institution survives. I hope it creates jobs because I've started it with that mission that I want to create superb rock star teachers who can teach communication and not teach, guide communication, help people with their confidence and other things. And the second thing is it's a business that is profitable. It runs, it spreads the outcome because that's when a business house survives. And I want to find the next CEO as quickly as possible because I want to go back to writing, teaching, and spending time and research. I'm very good at it. I'm also a reasonably good businessman. I'm becoming better because my board and other people are teaching me to become better. Um, but that path, I think, is a finite path. I have to grow a team. I know that once I have the right people, they'll do a better job than me. So I want to step back and become more like a person available for yapping and talking and nurturing. I'm very good at these things. Just being a person on sales, marketing people, execution, operations takes a toll on me. So I would like to leave the legacy in my team, write more books. So my books are my legacy. I hope they continue, and I hope I keep writing more editions. Um, my videos are going to be my legacy, I guess, because they will stay. The servers are going to run, and I hope the videos change lives. I get messages. A lot of people write to me. There is one video at I Am Bangalore, which is very popular. Not because it's a great video alone, it's I Am Bangalore. So I take great gratitude on that platform. A lot of people say that, sir, whenever I feel low, I watch that video. One student wrote to me, and student doesn't mean always a 18-year-old. I have managers of 40 years who write to me and say, we just before sleeping listen to few of your videos. It gives us that calmness. Now, I have a joke on that as well. My mother-in-law sleeps very well when I'm speaking on the YouTube. So I, so I joke with all my classes that maybe my voice is calming, and I work a lot on that because in communication, your voice is very important. So you have to slow it down. There's a certain frequency. Um, those are the three things that SOME, my books and my videos and content are my legacy.
Probably you have another career option to build a sleeping app or something where you could.
So I must tell you that I'm sure you would have watched Friends, right? There was one episode where I think Chandler listens to something to sleep, and it's like a cassette. This is a business.
Correct.
This is an old business, right? So
Yeah.
we used to watch audiobooks or listen to audiobooks on cassettes in those days. So there was a people in America had sleeping problem, and there was a cassette that said, "You listen to this, you'll sleep well." So Chandler was listening to it and trying to sleep, and Joey records himself on that.
Yeah, correct. I think it was a recording of his audition, right?
Audition. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
So there
I,
is a
I remember
science.
after you brought the Joey, till then I didn't get that where you what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
And there is a science behind tone and rest. And a very big part of my work is to also tell all my learners, CXOs, vice presidents, managers that, hey, shouting doesn't help, which is what we see in television these days, right? A very big problem, even in podcasts. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts. My first yardstick is the moment I start listening, do I feel peaceful or do I feel agitated? And that is a function of those people talking to each other. If they interrupt each other, if they're cross talking to each other, they're trying to do one upmanship with each other, I within few seconds I'm out of that podcast. But when I get into a podcast room and the voice is soothing, one person is speaking slowly and I could relate to it, I listen. Like there is a one of my favorite podcasts is Amit Verma's Seen and the Unseen, which is like one episode is upwards of 2 hours. Some of the episodes are 7 hours. So to listen to one episode, I sometimes take 14, 15 days because 30 minutes a day, and not every 14th day, right? There are breaks and all of that. But that's the beauty of that podcast. So he doesn't interrupt, he doesn't try to butt in. If he does, it's always to complement the speaker. The same thing is there in few other podcasts, and I teach that in my classes, that when you speak, can your voice be as calm and as soothing, because other person will change and connect more.
So maybe recommend some podcasts to our listeners.
So seen and unseen is good for any of you who want a long conversation on wide range of subjects. So you start with politics, go into economics, get into movies, then come into books. Very interdisciplinary podcast on one person's view, and he at least brings those people who have published good books, has have done good work. So he calls it a politics on economics and behavioral sciences. I don't think it is only that, it's a lot more than that. So that is one nice recommendation, seen and unseen. The second is a podcast for entrepreneurs called How I Built This. Guy Raz is extremely good in his approach with the podcast because he researches before the podcast happens. So he has done massive research on the entrepreneur. His questions are extremely open ended. He, in fact, even tells, I was researching, I found this article on you. That year must have been very bad on you. Is that right? So the kind of questions he asks is so good that he's researched, he's prepared, and I'm sure he would have prepared the entrepreneur. That is not a surprise. And the way he treats his people with so much of empathy is mind blowing. So that is one. Then there are a bunch of others. I listen to History Daily almost every few days. History Daily takes the date today, which happened, let's say, 70, 80 years ago, and 15 minutes. So you get a great dose of common sense, general knowledge kind of stuff. And you
Yeah,
learn.
I like that too. I don't listen to it on a daily basis, but I
Yeah.
keep catching up on.
So that is one. Then there is, I used to really love Revisionist History by Gladwell. At least the first three seasons, I was a big fan. I have kind of stopped listening to it. I couldn't capture it, didn't cap, or maybe I think I'm so busy and distracted that I'm not able to follow. So it's a little deep discussion. And if you miss 3 sentences, you miss the whole uh, podcast. So it's a pretty intense research. So I have to get back to it. I think it's my problem. I'm not able to listen to it. I listen to various other analysis of um, events of the world. So the usual Economist and Wall Street journals, and so I listen to few bits and pieces. But these 4 5 are my favorites, and I listen to the same episode again and again because it gives me that calmness, and I look at it as relaxation and something that I can learn, not as a way to really do something with it. So it's very passive.
Well, lastly, is there one person who you think you can attribute to the person that you are today?
No, I don't think so, because all of us, and I believe in this firmly, we are combinations of millions of people and experiences around us. And every day it's a new person. So the most obvious names which impact us obviously are our parents. The closest other person would be your spouse and children, because you spend most of your time with them. And if it's a great home, your personalities are shaped by them, the genes and other things. I'm now told that I sound a lot like my dad. Um, and I think I behave a lot like him as well. Genes. This is God. This is how I come from. I have taken my mother's color, but my father's features. So this traditional, this we Godhwanis have a big nose. It comes from my dad, and so I sound a lot like him. But my certain ideas are highly from my mother's side. Then I've also started to take my wife's and children's way of working. So that is one part. The other thing is my board and my investors and my team. I'm now becoming a lot like them. So I pick up few things. Then I also met, I think I was lucky that throughout my life, even when I was as young as a 8 or a 9 year old kid, I had friends who were twice my age, at least. So if I was 10, I had a 20-year-old friend. And we would be like bum chumps. I did not have the fear of being rejected in those days, which is surprising for a boy of 10 years. But I probably had the courage to go into my father's friends' houses and just have chai with the auntie and uncles out there. And they would tell कि आपका बेटा आया था. And my father would say, what are you doing there? So I would just take a cycle and land up in their house, and auntie would give chai and there would be something to eat. This is that small town culture, right? Every home is your home. And we lived in a campus and all of that. So, and in those conversations, there would be some old grandfather, and I would pop the question, Uncle, tell us something about your life. And I was a good listener. And they needed somebody to talk to. So they would tell me their stories. So I think that shaped my thought process. My college, massive shift in my personality. I had 3 or 4 very close friends who are still very close to me right now. They shaped me a lot. And one of them taught me how to be resilient because I was very homesick. And he said that you have to let it go, otherwise, you'll not survive. So he kind of made me resilient and distracted me when I used to get very sad and depressed. The other guy taught me to be a little bit more than just a 17-year-old kid. And he taught me that you have to stand up for yourself and also protect yourself because the world is not safe. The third one taught me to talk to anyone. And I learned a lot from his ability to network and get things done from anyone. I mean, this guy uh, could get anything from anyone, and he demonstrated it to me. And not like he's a bad person. He's not a wheeler dealer, a genuinely good networker. And even till now, he's like that. And so they shaped my thought processes. My days in Wipro, Intel, Qualcomm, at least two to three mentors from all these companies They still are in touch with me, and we still shape each other's thoughts. And of course, in IIM Bangalore, I think the largest friendships and philosophers came in my life because I had sat in their classes as a student, but now I was their colleague because I started to teach. And at lunch tables, we would sit, and they were the finest discussions I've had. Sometimes very opinionated, also. Like there were one or two of them, and when they would speak, the ears would start to bleed. It was that bad. But that happens everywhere. But the majority of the conversations were highly incisive, highly research oriented. And then I was hungry. So they would throw a name of a book. And I would quickly remember and come back to the library of IIM Bangalore and start digging where is that book, and at least pick up the book and read the back. And if the book was very good, I would take it out of the library and read it and put it back. So that's how my personality has shaped. So it's not one person. It's a every day. I think I believe in that philosophy that you are the sum total of all the people around you and the experiences that you do. And if you take the right ones, your personality becomes like that.
Well, Rakesh, I said that was the last, but I just want to ask you, this is the last question of the part. What does identity mean to you?
That's a question I don't have a great answer to because it changes every few years for me. About 3 decades ago, identity meant to me great amount of success. My name should be in the CXO list. My name should be in the world's best list. Like today, we have these Forbes 30 under 30 and Times 40 under 40. I think in in 1997, my
No, no,
yardstick.
not the recognition, identity.
That's what I'm
Who is
saying.
Rakesh Godhwani? Oh, that is also the external thing. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what my answer is, that 30 years ago, my identity was the need to be successful. By 2000
From
and
a outside perspective.
from an outside perspective. Then by 2010, it changed to a very different person who started to understand the meaning of purpose and satisfaction and content and needs and wants. So the identity changed, and then it became a person who now wants to be a very good at his teaching. So that's where the need to become a PhD and writer, maybe that all came in. 2020, the identity comes from this whole SOME and the need to take it somewhere because there are people connected to it, and I'm accountable for their salaries and the investments and the promises to our learners. So maybe the identity comes from there. But I am drawn to that nobody part a lot more these days. And I think throughout I've been like that. Maybe I did not understand it enough that I now know that my identity is not what I see. It's a complex issue. I am lucky to be in a position. So that is one part of identity. The second is I'm responsible for certain jobs, being a husband, a father, a CEO, and a citizen of the country. So that is a part of my identity. But deep inside, there is another identity, which is a person who loves to read and have conversations and listen and enjoy. That has become a stronger identity these days. And sometimes it is also about a person who is very nasty, cranky, depressed, always thinking about negative things. That's also my identity. Sometimes we don't realize we do have a bad side to our lives. And I'm very aware of it, that all of this shape my identity. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but this is how complex this question is.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It goes to somebody told me I'm an Indian, I'm a father, I'm a author, I'm a that community he belonged to. So,
Yeah.
uh, so uh, it's a mixture of too many things. But uh, I'm curious because uh, which way are we uh, going towards? I mean, you have this right wing, left wing, and right is to, and also nationalist and patriot. So
None of the above. So those are elements of my society that impact me. I don't let it impact me too much. I think my identity comes from my strong values, which I'm very aware of. I think so. I am a voter of the country who doesn't get too much biased by certain narrative all the time. Um, I am also a entrepreneur who's not biased by the massive shifts in macroeconomic view. I think I've now built an identity for my own self that what I think I am very clear about is few very simple values that what is important to me is my classroom. That is never going to go away. At least I'm very clear about it. So my identity comes from that classroom, and it will get stronger and stronger and stronger. The second thing is deep inside my identity as a family member. I'm very fond of my family, and I know my identity will work only when I get the love of my family. It can't be just myself. So I love my family, my wife, and my children. And I'm deeply sensitive to the fact that I'm responsible as a father and a husband and a society member. And the last is the basic values that I connect with humility a lot, and I connect with goodness for the society a lot. So, highly patriotic, not nationalistic, highly democratic citizen, but not rightist, leftist. I will always question if I see something wrong. Doesn't mean it's a right or a left. And highly focused on social impact, that whatever I do should translate in some good for the world. That is very important. It may not translate to money in my bank, which is my flaw. And I've been told, ki, boss, good entrepreneurs focus on money in the bank. So I'm learning. Maybe there's a balance between money in the bank and social impact.
well, that's Rakesh Godhwani, and hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Rakesh, thank you so much. Wonderful conversation, and we'll come back soon with why is SOME and what is it about, and what's the relevance of it. So I'm curious. I mean, the few more questions I have for Rakesh. So come back soon and do share it with all those who you think will appreciate it. And once again, thank you, and follow Future Fast. If you're not yet subscribed, please do it now. Thank you once again. Rakesh, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nanjunda.